Okay, next interface, we are going to look at Cloneable Interface. So if we have a class that implement Cloneable Interface, we can clone objects out of that class, okay? So this interface specifies that object can be cloned. So any class implement clonable interface, that class we should be able to clone objects. Unfortunately, this interface has an empty body. It doesn't have constants. It doesn't have abstract methods, so that there's nothing to override. But these clone methods we have in object class. That is a superclass of everything. So when we override clone methods, it seems like we are overriding clone method in clonable interface, but that is not the case. Okay, that's why sometimes in this kind of interface we call it as a marker interface. Okay, you mark it as interface, but with an empty body. So important thing is it has an empty body. Does not contain constants, abstract methods. So we are going to override clone methods in the object class. Okay. Main idea is if we implement clonable interface, we can clone our objects. Before I look at clone objects, let me just show you quickly. What we are doing is different from playing with object reference variable. Okay. Let's say str1 is hello, intern object. Then string str2 is intern object again. So we have str1 object reference variable referring to object happen to be string type. Actual value is hello. And when you look at second line, string str2, that's again object reference variable, but it doesn't point to anything at this point. Line number 3, it says that str2 also refers to str1, happen to be same object. So if you look at here, idea is how many objects do we have? There is one single object, okay? How many object reference do we have? Do you have one object reference variable? Actually, there are two of them. So we have a two object reference variable point to exactly the same object, okay? So let's look at object cloning. Object cloning, we are focusing on objects, not the reference, okay? So if we copy that, we are going to focus on So let's say if we have two object reference variable str1, str2. This time we have identical object that actually give us two objects. Second object actually is a clone object. So we have how many objects? Two objects. Both of them are what we call as identical objects with the same contents. And we have two object reference variables. Each object reference variable point to their own object, even though it seems like there are same contents in it. So the difference between that two object reference variables, single object, and two objects. Okay. But the second object we clone from the first object. Okay. Okay, we are going to look at object cloning. There are actually two types of cloning. We call it as a shallow copy and then deep copy. So shallow copy refers to cloning objects based on primitive data type. And then deep copy means we have objects that also include objects. We like to copy that reference as well. So that's more complicated. That's what we call it as a deep copy. So when people are referring to cloning, they are actually referring to deep copy rather than shallow copy. So that's the idea of object cloning. We copy each field from original object to target object. Okay. But when we reporting to each field or data, sometimes we are dealing with the primitive data type only. In that case, we are talking about shallow copy or reporting to shallow copy. So we are talking about str1, str2, okay? But deep copy, if data field is object type, its reference variable is copy. So let me draw one example here. So what we have on our left hand side, that's what we call as a shallow copy, which is straightforward in terms of implementations. But if you have more complicated object structure, for example, object has list that happen to be ArrayList. Then ArrayList, of course, ArrayList will have a collection of objects. Let's say we have an integer here as a leper class, okay? Not a primitive data type. Okay, we're talking about leper class. So number 10, that is actually leper class, integer class. Let's say num1, okay, that's the object reference variable. Happen to be integer type. So if we want to clone list 1, what we really want is everything, isn't it? Not just list 1 as a reference variable. Also, we have to have a data structure that refers to num1, and then num1 happen to be integer class type. So when we clone list2 should refers to same data structure as list1. So this kind of cloning, we call it as a deep copy. Again, list2 is a clone object. Let me write it down here. This is what we call as a deep copy. Just one type of cloning. This is what we call as a shallow copy if we don't deal with reference, okay, inside the object. So that's how I visualize it in terms of UML class diagram. You need to consider string is, of course, string is a class. And ArrayList is also a class. Should implement cloneable interface so that you can clone string objects or ArrayList object. So if I draw UML class diagram, that's the interface. We use the dashed line and then point to the cloneable interface. Just look at the green color, okay? But in terms of when we override the clone methods, they actually belongs to object class, okay? And then clone method is protected, so I'm using slightly different symbol. I may explain to you later on. That's accessibility modifier. Looks like a sharp, that means protected, okay? So we are extending object class. If you extend it explicitly or implicitly, doesn't matter. All classes extend object class. Means we can override clone methods in string class or ArrayList class. So as long as we have a class implement cloneable interface, we can override the clone method to clone our classes or clone our objects of the same class, okay? So again, this integer class should implement cloneable interface as well. So let me just draw the line, dash the line all the way. This weak is extension of a relationship, so there should be a triangle. So that we can clone, so that we can make a list number 2. Okay. Okay, let's look at the demonstration here. 63. So let me pick 2 or 3 classes that actually implement cloneable interface. Then I'm going to show you how to customize your class to be clonable. So let's use arrays, okay? So we have array A1 has 2 numbers, 10 and 20. A2 is based on A1. So can we clone the object and then assign to A2? So A1, let me make a minor change. After we clone, Then we update the data on A1 and A2. Let's see what happens. So in this case, we have two objects, and each object should be able to deal with a different value. Again, important thing is we have two reference variable A1, A2, and we also have two objects. Okay. So let's say print array static void print array int array. Here I will say print array I with one space, so it will be looks exactly the same. It will appear on the single line. Okay. So we print one, and then I will leave a new line. Just in case, new line. So we have 70, 20, 10, 80. Ideally there was a 10 and 20. We updated, and the next one clone from A1, and A2 is become 10 and 80. I think I need to print it before and after. It seems a bit confusing, okay, but A2 is updated with 80. So let me make a minor change. Copy it all. We clone A1, then say before, and then we change the value. Then I will say after, so we know that we cloned the object that's identical. We change the value A1 for 70, A2 we change to 80. So we know that A1 and A2 point to two different objects. Okay, so that's how we can use arrays for cloning. Another idea is using ArrayList. Okay, so let me just say that arrays already implement Cloneable Interface. You can look at the API, and then these clone methods. We are using the clone method in object class. Okay, so if you hear control spacebar, it says that method belongs to object class. Okay, and then returning object. Let's clone ArrayList. Import. Here I'm going to say list 1 at 1.5. That's what we call as auto boxing, if you didn't remember. 2.5. List 2. Actually it's supposed to be 1. Again, auto boxing for double wrapper class. Same as saying new and double 3.5. Okay. So here, if we say list and clone, it may not work this time, okay? So when you're dealing with objects, you need to be more careful. Here, you need to do typecasting. We have to say ArrayList double class type, okay? Pretty much the data type is so straightforward, but when you're dealing with the objects, you got to be more careful. Let's say list 3, saying that list 3 point to list 1 as well, so we have exactly the same thing. List 2 add 4.5, list 3 remove 1.5. Let's see what happened, okay? I think I need one method called print array, ArrayList. List 1 and number 2 and 3. Let me go down and here I may say public static void. This time I should code it as print ArrayList. Actually I can use overloading method, but let me just separate it. Sorry, I changed my mind. So that should be list, then size, I++, array list, you need to use a get methods, okay? And then print one space. That's all. I will go back and change to print array list, okay? I need one new line. So let me copy. That should be after so that we know how it works. Let me comment it out so that will not appear. Seems okay. Just add one more new line. So before we have 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, all same, okay? Same, okay? The first one is list 1, and number 2, list 2 is clone. And list 3 actually same as list 1. Add 4.5, we remove 1.5. That's why when we print list 1 and 3, happen to be same thing, that's why 1.5 does not appear. Again, list 3 is not clone object, okay? Just a reference to same object. So you should be able to see clearly the difference between we have whether we have object or clone object. Let's go to my own class so that we can implement Cloneable Interface. so that we can clone our own objects. And I will demonstrate how to do shallow copy and then deep copy. Again, it is necessary because what we did was just use what's already available without knowing how it actually works. We just know how to use it. So this one I will demonstrate how it works. If we understand how it works, we should be able to use how to use it. It's not that difficult, isn't it? So let's create one class called item, generally saying a superclass for anything. As a name or whatever we create as an item or product. Okay. So every item has some sort of ID, default value. Okay, I will say integer. This time item name. Next one, I'm going to use intentionally class. Okay, so here every item we can buy online or at the shop has some sort of expiry date. So I'm going to create a class called expiry date. So we need to create a class. We can use a date class too, but it's difficult to follow, okay? Because the value does not change. Your laptop is so quick, it does not change the new value. This is actually better in terms of demonstrations for me to use it so that I can demonstrate. So here I will say the string value. I'll just type the name called sorry. If it's going to expire May 30, 2020. So I will say months. Again, I'm going to use a string. Here I'm going to say year. So we have a class called expiry date with 3 data fields. One constructor, another constructor, maybe 2 string print it all so we know what's inside. So that's all. Again, straightforward. So we go back to our item class. Constructor, default constructor, here say expiry date. We need to construct the object, so expiry date. Good enough. Item I'm going to just demonstrate as it is. I have not yet implemented Cloneable Interface. So let's see what happens. I will just create item, maybe item number 1. And then item number 2, we will clone based on item 1. So item 1 clone, okay. The problem we have here, item class is not yet implementing cloneable interface. So we cannot use the clone methods available in object class. So what we need to do is go back to item class. Again, that will fix one problem. Now it's comparable. Still, we won't be able to do that. Okay, we cannot clone. We can clone the objects if the object is implement cloneable interface. So here we say implement cloneable. So item class now implements cloneable interface. Capital C, sorry. So I'll remove the comments. Now it says that we need to have a method called clone. Again, the clone method should be overwritten here in this item class. Straightforward, okay. We are going to override it, referring to superclass clone methods. So override, we are looking for clone methods in object class. Only one thing strange here. Say remove that one first, okay. Here say instead of public is protected, okay. I don't think I mentioned it yet, but that's just don't worry. There's something to do with the shallow copy. Save it. Now it will allow you to clone here. They said through clause for Java language class not support exceptions. Again, there's something to the exception handling I haven't covered yet. But just saying that we have to deal with the unusual exception, okay? If the class is not implementing a clonable interface, we won't be able to clone. In that case, something happens. Java virtual version need to know how to deal with it. That's how we call it as a exception handling. So here I'm going to print toString. Item number 2. So this one's supposed to print identical output. So here, that's the previous one. Let me comment it out. And that output can remember again here just object name, object UID. Okay, so we need the toString methods. So that way we can see what's inside. So we have two objects, identical value. Of course, identical because we clone. Let's say before and after. So we will change something here, item number 2. Set ID 1, 2, 3. I'm naming it as a pizza. So when you look at here after, clone object has ID and then name. So we can use the second object like as it is. Then next one, we are going to deal with expiry date. It's something long. Let me check. I don't have a get and set method for expiry date. So let me go down here. Maybe a bit more down. Maybe here. Insert code, getter and setter. That's what I need. So we have a get and set expiry date. Okay. So when we say get expiry date, it's going to return expiry date object. That object has a set method so that we can set day, month, and year. Let's say next month. There will be months, and there will be year. May 2020. Okay. So as you can see, what happened is here. It seems like we have two objects, but when you're dealing with the expiry date, again, the expiry date reporting to same object. So even though we have two item objects, each item object reporting to same expiry date. There's a single object reporting to expiry date. Copying object reference with the object. So basically that did for job. So we should be able to perform deep copy. So when we clone objects and the object has another object inside, that should be copy as well. And if we use a return super.clone, it will do only shallow copy. It's going to copy only reference. So let's say item clone, super clone. We are going to have not object type, item type. Okay. If you remember polymorphism, here we are going to return. Actually, we need to, before we return, we need to one more things. We are dealing with expiry date. So that should be able to clonable. So here we can say item clone dot data field called expiry date. Again, we need to do typecasting as a expiry date. That's supposed to be I here. Expiry date. Okay. And once we're done, it's just say that we forgot to do overriding clone method in expiry date class. Item clone. Okay. So we go back. We need to add overriding methods called clone methods. But this one has to be done as a deep copy instead of shallow copy. So once we change shallow copy to deep copy, our clonable objects are able to clone item object that comes with expiry date object. Previously, it was not able to clone expiry date object. Now it has been cloned, so that's why you can set a new expiry date. So this is how we use it. Item number 3. You can clone same thing quickly. Let me just print. Then you can make minor adjustments so that you can use the clone object exactly same as just ordinary object. So let's say 456. So we have one object and then 2 clone objects, and then 2 clone objects has a 2 different value or its own value. We override it. That's how we use customize clonable class. Okay, that's all. Thank you.